You want to know how you can customize SwayNC to perfectly suit your needs. Well, there are two ways to do it. One is we can find a config online and adapt that to suit our needs, or we could write something completely from scratch. The latter part is, of course, definitely more fulfilling, but I will just show you how to get a config and adapt it to your own liking as fast as possible, okay? So if I were configuring SwayNC for myself, this is how I would go about it. So I open browser, open SwayNC wiki. Okay, so we see this link over here by Eric Ryder. Scroll down over here and he mentions a place where you can show off your sick config. So you just click on this part. Okay, and we will be brought to the discussions page on his GitHub repo. Okay, so this is what my SwayNC looks like right now, right? There are no notifications. We have a clear button, do not disturb, and all of that fun stuff, right? We have a bunch of controls over here, and I call my notification center Overwatch. So if I just show you what an actual notification looks like over here, okay, so I changed the wallpaper, for example, using this theme switcher. Okay, and by the way, I teach you how to theme switchers like this and SwayNC configs and a whole lot more, to be honest, completely from scratch in the top link in the description. To be honest, it helps you out more than it can ever help me out. So click it if you want to. I don't really care. Okay, now that that's out the way, this is what the notification looks like. The setup is using Matugen, so it has the power to theme itself according to whatever wallpaper I'm using. Right, this is what it looks like. If I just change the theme back again to this wallpaper, okay, close that. And basically, that is how the notification center works. All of these controls here, by the way, all of them work too. So if I were to click on this airplane mode icon, my internet would get turned off. Same for this mute thing, right? As you can see here, volume indeed gets muted. Okay, awesome. Now, I'll show you how to make something similar to this, right? The config that I want you to do is somewhere over here. So we scroll down until we find it eventually. There are a couple of other good ones like this somewhere over here. Basically, yeah, one that I scrolled past, like this one. This is a good one. Okay. This one looks pretty minimal and nice. Apart from that, there was also this. This is the one that I was going to show you how to set up, right? Dynamic with blur using Hyprland. Let's click on the dot files and let's check out what this guy has to say. Right, over here. Now, if you're lucky, some configurations will have an install script that you can just clone and install, but most of the time you are not going to get any install script, right? It's just going to be you sat at your computer trying to figure out this person's dot files, for example, right? The way we do that is by just cloning, copying it to clipboard, and CDing into /tmp. Here is a pro tip. Instead of cluttering your home directory with all sorts of BS you probably would never think to use again, you can just cd into the /temp directory and then just git clone whatever you want to over here. Okay, so you can just clone that into here. The way the temp works is, if I'm not wrong, right, the temp directory is cleared out after every reboot. So you're pretty much not going to have to worry about whatever files or folders that you put inside of the temp directory. It's pretty much just going to get cleaned out after a reboot. So it's perfect for one-off sort of projects like this, where you just have to set something up and get rid of it. Okay, you can just cd into the temp directory, clone whatever you want to, play around in there, blah, blah, blah. And then once you're done, that's pretty much it. You don't have to worry about that directory anymore. You don't even have to delete or remove it. You do so just for satisfaction. Right, so this is done. So let's cd into there and let's see what is going on over here. So cd into .config, we find SwayNC right over here. Let me back up my existing config so that I can show you how to apply this. Config SwayNC. Or rather, we're going to move config SwayNC to config SwayNC -back. By the way that renaming things works is basically we move this directory into the same directory, .config, right? We're moving the SwayNC directory into .config, which it already is in, but just with a different name. That's how renaming things works in Linux. You just take it, let's say you wanted to just rename something, right? You take the mv command And you basically move the file or directory into the directory in which it already was, just with a different name. It's like taking a wrapper, right? Let's say that, for example, you have your favorite chocolate, okay, and it has a wrapper. It's just taking the wrapper out of that chocolate and putting a different wrapper on it. Still the same chocolate, but just a different wrapper. Cool way to explain how renaming folders works. But yes, okay. So as you can see over here, right now it's just going to retain the config. That's not what we want. We want to see our config work properly. So I'll just kill all -9 SwayNC. We're going to have to do this multiple times for some reason. SwayNC just does not want to die, right? So we're going to have to kill it until it's dead. And okay, so I'm pressing Super A on my keyboard and it's not showing anything. That's a good sign. We want it to be dead until we revive it. So we run SwayNC. And okay, this is what it looks like, plain vanilla. Okay, great, awesome. Now, simplest way to get started is to just copy this SwayNC directory over to home/.config. Ta-da! Now that that's done, we cd over to home/.config SwayNC ls, and we find all of this. Right now, it's probably not going to work. Okay, let me show you what happens if I execute it now. It's going to complain that it can't find this style.css file and some wall colors.waybar whatever CSS. Basically, this setup is using PyWall, and the rest of my setup is using Mathugen. Right? I'm using Mathugen in the setup. I have explained how to use Mathugen before on my channel, and I go more in depth into it than you can probably imagine in the top link in the description. So click it if you want to. Right? We have Mathugen. I've themed the rest of my system using Mathugen, and so what's going to happen is I'm also going to theme SwayNC using Mathugen. Now, how would I go about doing that? First, we deal with the problems that the universe is throwing at us immediately, right? The problems that are most immediate, I mean. So how would we go about doing that? Let's see whether any issues are there which we can fix in style.css. Okay, so there's this file which pretty much doesn't exist. We're going to have to create that. The way we create that is by using Mathugen. So if I show you my Mathugen config, Mathugen config.toml, go over to SwayNC, you will see over here that the output path for whatever template I've given it is in SwayNC Mathugen colors.css. Okay, that is fantastic. So now I just have to point this file over to there. That's it. Okay, so we go over here and we say Mathugen /colors.css. The file doesn't exist right now, but it will exist once we run the theme switcher. Okay, so it applies the theme and everything. Awesome. Great. Now that's done. We run it and okay, much better. We have a colors file, but none of the colors are actually applied. How do we fix that? We cd into themes, right? Cd into themes, Nova Dark as it's called over here, and edit the central control file. Here we see all the text colors and everything else. You can edit each of the individual colors here specifically if you want to, right? It'll take about 20-30 minutes to edit this if you want to. But what I suggest you do is just edit whatever colors are over here. So we change text to on surface. That's the color code that we're using in Mathugen for the text color, and background alt is going to be at surface with 0.4 opacity, so 40% opacity, right? 0.4. Selected is going to be primary. Hover is going to be secondary. Urgent is going to be error. Okay, so we just reload. I've set up a script to reload Waybar and SwayNC. So if I now press this, as you can see here, everything works. Awesome. Now, as one last thing, I can also access the notification center by clicking on this gear icon, but this should be on the left side. So how would you go about changing that? Well, simple as editing the main config file, which is in config.json. Okay, we change position X to left and keep position Y as top. Reload. If I open now with a keybind, as you can see, it works. And that is pretty much it. That is how you configure SwayNC. There's another thing, right? You see this control over here. All these controls work, by the way. So if I were to press on this one, it would turn off Bluetooth. Okay. And same for Wi-Fi and so on and so forth. There might be a bit more configuration you have to do. Yeah, as you can see here, Bluetooth. Might be a bit more configuration you have to do here with the commands that you run for toggling Bluetooth on and off. You could set that up with a script, right? For example, this color palette icon, we could change that to something like a dropper, make it a color picker so that we can pick colors from the screen, right? You could create a script to pick whatever colors you wanted to from the screen. That would be pretty useful. Again, I go in depth into creating stuff like that into my course, which I've linked in the description. Okay, so that. And apart from that, that should be it. Goodbye.